Most D2C e-commerce brands don't forecast, they typically guess. And when you guess, you either miss opportunities or even overspend and lose out on profit that you didn't realize you were leaking. What if I told you your forecasting sheet could be doing you more harm than good? In this video, we'll break down the exact system we've used to help direct-to-consumer brands scale to 7 and 8 figures while staying profitable down to the dollar. You'll get a walkthrough of our forecasting model, learn how to reverse engineer your marketing budget profit first, and avoid the 3 most common mistakes founders tend to make when trying to scale profitably. Plus, I'll give you a free copy of the exact forecasting template I use with brands inside StoreHero. You can download it in the description and follow along as we go. I'm Karl O'Brien, co-founder of StoreHero, and if you're tired of chasing ROAS without a clear path to actual profit, this one's for you. We help brands get a single view of their sales, marketing, and profit data to make better profit-driven decisions. But not only that, we help you input your sales and profit goals and generate a forecast so you can get a traffic light system exactly where you're on track and off track against those goals. Let's dive in and build a clear plan for growth for the next quarter or year. So while it's never been easier to start an e-commerce business, it's potentially never been more difficult to grow that business profitably. And for that reason, most D2C brands leak profit. They've no clear view of future revenue versus cost. So ultimately, what are the underlying assumptions? What are the variable costs, fixed costs, and marketing spend they need to be willing to invest to reach their goal? And they see consistent increases in customer acquisition cost, number 2. And those CAC surprises eat into their margin. They have a sense of what their margin is, but ultimately don't have a clear view, and there's often less of it there remaining than they expect. From there's often resource misallocation. We have a number of different teams within the business communicating in different ways. We don't have an alignment between stock, cash, and marketing spend in order to really grow profitably. Oftentimes, decisions are often made by hope, not on data. Again, those forecasts are often an aspirational goal, but we're not necessarily breaking that broader goal into manageable and realistic targets. So we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to succeed as well. So let's just take this example of a $100 AOV product or order. So in this particular case, we might see, $30 of product costs between packing fees, shipping costs, transaction fees, taxes. We ultimately are seeing a good chunk of that $100 being accounted for. And you can see here we've $25 allocated for marketing spend, so like a 4 ROAS, let's say. And in this particular scenario as well, we're allocating $14.55 for profit. Now, oftentimes what's happened over the last couple of years is we've seen a shift to this second, scenario, and where our marketing spend has creeped up from $25 to $35. Not necessarily a crazy expectation to make based on the realities of what we've seen in businesses over the last couple of years. And ultimately now, to account for that, my profit has gone from $14.55 down to $4.55. So all of a sudden, I now need to do 3 times the volume of orders in order to generate the same level of profit. And for this reason, we need to make sure when we're forecasting, we're actually mapping out each of these variables in order to understand not only what's our top line goal, but what we should be willing to spend to get there and what each channel has by way of responsibility to achieve that goal. So we can all agree that the typical accounting standard is going to give a simple formula like this: revenue minus cost equals profit. Ultimately, the challenge with this approach is at the end there, profit is an afterthought. But what if we actually planned in a different formula, in a different way, whereby revenue minus profit equals costs? What we're saying here is we're treating profit as a non-negotiable, not an afterthought. So by knowing my target revenue and the target profit, we can see what's the associated cost that I can spend at a maximum in order to achieve those goals and for those things to be true. Okay, so we're ready to create our forecast. So ultimately we have 2 different options here. You could either use the StoreHero built-in forecasting tool as part of the free trial, or if you're an active customer, or alternatively, you can use the free e-commerce forecasting template. Both of them are going to give us the same output. StoreHero one will be a lot easier to do and quicker to do, and also will mean that you have kind of your analytics dashboard showing what's on track and off track on a consistent basis once you've created this forecast. But again, both work on the same fundamental principles of our core e-commerce profit dial, understanding what our key assumptions are and modeling that over the course of the year. So if you choose to use our free e-commerce forecast template, you'll be asked to make a copy And what that will do, it'll generate a sheet like this. So from here, any of the yellow fields are going to be our inputs, the variables we want to take into account in order to build out our forecasting template. So what I'll do is, you can see here there's kind of a number of different key inputs, whether it's the sales, cost of goods, fixed costs, and profit, and they actually match within the platform itself. So what I'll do is I'll use the platform version just because it's more visual to illustrate the point, but we can do both. So let's say for argument's sake, you want to set a target net sales goal. By default, StoreHero will set a goal that's 20% above the goal you achieved in the last year. Now, you may choose to create I suppose, ultimately a forecast from the start of the current calendar year, or alternatively, you'll want to use the current month and work 12 months ahead. So you have some flexibility there. So ultimately, if we set the 1.4 million pie chart, either in the platform or alternatively on the sheet, and add an extra zero here, what we can do here is understand out of the 1.4 million pie chart, work backwards to reverse engineer our desired or kind of target marketing spend. So first and foremost, we're going to need to cover our cost of goods, our variable costs, anything that will, I suppose, increase as we drive a higher volume of orders. That may be product cost, packing, shipping, transaction fees, anything relevant in that particular case. By default, we'll actually pull in the cost of goods you've seen last year. So again, make sure not to just consider your product cost in this calculation. So in this particular case, our cost of goods are 39%, meaning 552K of our 1.4 million needs to be set aside to account for those variable costs. Next, we have our operating expenses. So these operating expenses are fixed costs, which we don't expect to change very much as we scale. At least it doesn't scale proportionally with our variable costs, our order level expenses. These may be things like staff costs, rent, software subscriptions. You will see this maybe increase or decrease over time, but not directly. Driving an extra volume of orders won't necessarily increase these. As I mentioned before, this can represent anywhere between 10 and 15% ultimately of a business's kind of revenue, depending on how big the business is, maybe up to 20% for newer businesses. So ultimately, we're setting aside 210K. And then finally, we have our net profit. So ultimately, this is the target net profit that we want to input into StoreHero to then, again, reverse engineer the desired marketing spend. Finally, we're also going to set our new customer percentage here. So again, really what we want to try to understand is out of whatever goal we want to start to create, what percentage of that goal falls on the shoulders of new customers by way of responsibility versus repeat customers, and we can set some more granular goals from there. So again, on the platform, we get the same thing: net sales, cost of goods, our operating expenses, and our net profit. And what that does is actually create and output our desired marketing budget. In this particular case, accounting for all these variable costs, our 552K, our 210 for net profit, means we have 427K left over for marketing spend, roughly 30%. As we can see below, based on the metrics above, you can afford to spend up to 427,420 on marketing, as long as you maintain an average MER of 3.28. So ultimately what we mean by this is anytime we spend $1, €1, £1, we need to return at least $3.28 back, or €3.28 back in net sales, in order to make sure our marketing spend is performing at the level we need it to. If it's not, then ultimately the pie chart, something is got to give. We may see a lesser profit. We may not have as big of a budget for operating expenses. We need to see that somewhere else. So you can see here with StoreHero, last year we achieved a 6.83 MER. So based on this past performance, this seems like a reasonable goal. So again, same thing here. Based on these inputs, as we adjust these inputs, that will change the level of marketing spend and the MER or efficiency we need to hit. So ultimately, again, you have an option to kind of adjust this and find a scenario that works best. So just for argument's sake, we'd often see situations where maybe a business has a much higher cost of goods percentage. Maybe they're a little bit, they're heavy enough operating expenses. Let's say there's an extra 100K there. and maybe they're quite ambitious with their net profit target. So you can see in this scenario, it's really the impact of these decisions is it's contracting the amount of budget left over for marketing expenses. And now if these elements are true, we can only afford to spend 80K on marketing and have to maintain an MER of 17.5. So again, based on past performance, that may be a very tall order. And this can really help prevent a situation where you're walking yourself into a forecast that's very unlikely to hit and you don't have any justifiable reason as to why you will see maybe a 3x of your MER or efficiency. The other piece to note here is as you increase your spend, Meta, Google, TikTok, whatever channel you're using, will have a harder job to try to put that spend to work. So making sure you're accounting for that within the StoreHero platform, we'll expect a certain level of kind of a regression. As we increase in spend, we expect that spend not to go as far. As long as you're able to increase spend and your return ROAS MER doesn't necessarily drop to the same extent, that's usually a good sign that we're kind of better off. So from there, we've set our individual inputs. Let's say we're happy enough. I'll revert back to those previous kind of adjustments. And we're happy. Okay, this is an achievable goal. So from there, I can click on next, and ultimately we have a breakdown of our month-on-month targets in relation to that goal. So let's say for argument's sake that last July we achieved 5.46% of our sales. What we're going to do is give July responsibility for 5.46% of our goal this year. And what that allows us to do is ensure we take into account the seasonality of your business, and we're not breaking up your goal in 12 equal parts for each month. But equally, we can use this to help assign some of the underlying goals, whether it's our marketing percentage or cost of goods percentage, our level of net sales, our average order value, our marketing spends, but also because we started to identify what burden of responsibility we would put on both new and repeat customers, we can also set things like a new customer sales goal, repeat customer sales goal, gross profit per new and repeat customer, the total acquisition cost we should be willing to spend, and the new customer contribution margin we can afford. So in this particular case, what's the loss or profit we need to make or can only afford to make on each new customer order? Again, with this, we do have an opportunity to adjust and edit this. We might say, okay, well, realistically, in August, we are going to maybe achieve a higher level of sales because my sale is happening there. So I can maybe increase the responsibility in August, but maybe equally decrease it on September to ensure my goal is fully allocated, but not over allocated, to ensure these match up to 100% as well. So you can make any of those adjustments, click finish, and then on that basis, we have that data saved. And we can see where we're on track, off track, and ultimately where within the StoreHero platform we need to adjust. In this particular case, there's quite a lot of reds we need to take action on in order to reach that goal. So we can see a lot of flexibility in that. Within this, e-commerce forecast template, you're setting any of those variables manually. So some of the things that we can pull automatically from StoreHero, you'll just need to set like your new versus repeat customer, average order value, website conversion rate, and your monthly sales over the course of the previous year to ensure that we can ultimately effectively map out the goal for the upcoming year as well. So again, plenty of reference points here to use to map this out, but overall it should be a really helpful resource. Again, if you want to take a look and get access to either our free e-commerce forecast template, I'd recommend clicking the link in the description or going to storehero.ai/template to get access to this particular tool. From there, if you actually want to get signed up and go through a free trial and take the advantage of actually doing this a little bit easier, feel free to do that at the link in the description or go to storehero.ai/demo to get started with a demo. So there we have it. Forecasting doesn't necessarily guarantee growth, but it gives us the power to grow with confidence instead of chaos. And this is ultimately the exact formula we've used to help e-commerce brands scale to 7 and 8 figures, to reverse engineer their marketing budget, plan for both revenue and profit priorities, and ultimately scale with profit in mind. If you haven't already, make sure to grab the free e-commerce forecasting template below. And if you want to ditch the spreadsheets completely and have StoreHero track your forecast versus your actuals in real time, start a free trial as well below. Thanks for watching, and if this helped, please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below on what kind of content you want to see more from us at StoreHero. It's definitely one of many videos we're looking to post over the next couple of months that go into deeper dives across each of the key parts of the platform, all with the goal of helping people scale profit first. Thanks, and see you in the next one.